Hey everybody, and welcome back to another setup and rules video on Ready Steady Play. I'm Mike, and I'm going to be taking you through Volfyirion. You're probably here because you've seen Volfyirion on Kickstarter and you're curious about it and how it works. So I'm going to tell you how to set it up and play the game. Volfyirion is set in a fantasy world that Tabula Games' other product, Mystia, is also set in. You might have seen Mystia on Kickstarter previously. Volfyirion is set in the game Volfyirion. Volfyirion is also a dragon. But the game Volfyirion is set in the town of Kairadar, in which two noble houses, the noble house of Volrys and Rorius, are battling it out for power over the dragon, known as Volfyirion. I've also got a poster of Volfyirion here. I don't know if you can see it because lights. But you will be taking on the role of one of these noble houses and recruiting assets in the form of soldiers, arcane artifacts, and wonders during the course of the game, which you will then be using to beat the other house into submission. You have 3 cities on the board, and once you've destroyed all 3 of your opponent's cities, they lose the game and you are declared the winner. So there's a few interesting twists going on with the traditional deck builder here, and I'm going to explain the rules to you now. So in the box of Volfyirion, you'll find a dragon token. Now I've also got this fancy dragon model here. These are Volfyirion, and you can purchase this fancy dragon model as part of the Kickstarter campaign. It probably won't be this one because this is a 3D printed one they sent me. The one you purchase as part of the Kickstarter campaign probably won't look the same as this because this is a fancy 3D printed one that they sent me, but it'll probably actually look much better, and it could well be the same sculpt. Look at him, isn't he fearsome? The game will also come with a dragon token as standard that you can use for play during the game anyway, because you'll need that. Or you can sub in any dragon that you have lying around. Now here in the box we've got a number of decks of cards. We've got 2 starting decks, one for each player, and I'll show you what's in the starting decks a bit later. But you'll have 3 city cards as well for each player. They'll have 1 starting deck each. You'll also have what's called an asset deck, and that will be the biggest deck, and it's right here. Boom, assets. So then we've got Volfyrion's lair, and a wonder deck as well. So everyone will start the game with 3 cities, numbered 8, 9, and 10. You'll also start the game with a deck of 10 cards that contains 1 captain, 1 diviner, and 8 prospectors. And each player has a set like this. That is the exact same. You'll have 1 Volfyrion's lair card. This will be set up on the table where both players can access it. We'll have a deck of wonder cards, and you can tell wonder cards because of this symbol up here. And we'll look at these in a bit more detail during the rules section in just a minute. But just so you know how to organize your deck, look for the wonder symbol here and put all those cards together. And then finally, we've got the asset deck. Now, this will contain all of the cards that aren't in the other decks. And you can tell the difference between the asset cards and your starting cards because your starting cards are in gray, and any gray neutral cards in the asset deck do not have the gray border and have a slightly different banner. All of the cards in your starting deck are command cards, which means they have a command symbol up here, but you'll see there are some command cards in the asset deck as well. The asset deck will be made up of 3 different types of cards: command cards, troop cards, and building cards, but these will also come in 4 colors. Red, which typically represents battle and aggression. Green, which gives you command points, but really represents sort of economy. These are the economy cards of the game. And finally, the purple cards, which represents knowledge. So you'll take all your assets and just shuffle them together into a big deck. Once your decks are set up, players need to set up their play area. We'll put our dragons to one side for now. Each player will shuffle their deck of 10 cards and set up their cities like this. You'll take your asset deck, give that a good shuffle as well. Place the asset deck somewhere nearby and turn over 5 cards to represent a marketplace. Since recording my rules and setup video, the rules for the asset deck have been changed, but only very minorly and in a very cool way. When you're setting up the original marketplace of asset cards during the start of the game, also flip over the top card of the asset deck so that it's face up.
Whenever a card is purchased from the marketplace or acquired by other means and replaced from the asset deck, make sure you take the face-up card and then turn the next card face up. This means that players have an idea of what's coming out and also makes changing cards in the marketplace using your knowledge points more impactful and powerful. Pretty cool.
Take your Volfyrion's lair card, put it somewhere nearby. Take your Wonders deck and give it a good shuffle. Wonder cards have a cost up here, which is a number of battle points. Now, at the start of the game, you're going to be drawing a couple of Wonder cards to put out on Volfyrion's lair that can be purchased, and you're looking to put down cards that cost less than 4. If you draw any cards that cost 4, just discard them and put them back on the bottom of the deck once you've set up the cards. Finally, put your Volfyirion model nearby the Volfyrion's lair card. In Volfyirion, each player will begin their turn by drawing 5 cards. These cards will provide them with 3 different currencies: battle points, knowledge points, and command points. You'll use these points to purchase cards and to attack your opponent, and also to manipulate Volfyirion. Through the use of these currencies, you'll aim to destroy all of your opponent's cities and gain the upper hand. Once all 3 cities are destroyed, you will immediately win the game. The first player is the last person who saw a dragon, either real or fictional. The first player will draw 5 cards. This is the first step of every turn, drawing 5 cards from the top of the deck. Now, on the very first turn, you have the option to mulligan this hand, which means you can discard the entire hand and redraw it. However, if you don't want to discard it, then play begins with this hand. I'll explain how the turn takes place momentarily. However, once the first player has finished their first turn, the second player will then draw 5 cards and have the same option to mulligan that hand. Now, whether or not they mulligan that hand, the second player also has the option of completely scrapping the assets here. What that means is they could take all of these cards, discard them, and reset the 5 cards available to purchase. This is a marketplace. A turn will typically consist of playing the 5 cards available to you in your hand. If you're lucky enough to have some card draw, you can draw further cards and play them immediately. Here we have an example of a starting hand. We've got the 3 prospectors, a captain, and a diviner. Now we can play any number of cards from our hand on our turn, and there's really very little reason not to play them all. We have, in this case, 3 prospectors, and when we play them, we are awarded 3 command points. When we played the diviner, we're awarded a 4th command point, giving us a total of 4, and 3 knowledge, meaning that we now have 3 knowledge points as well. Finally, we can play the captain, who gives us 3 battle points. That means that this turn, we're going to have 4 command points, 3 knowledge points, and 3 battle points that we can use to purchase assets available on the table here. The first thing that you're probably going to be doing in Volfyirion, and the most common action, will be to purchase a card from the asset area here, or one of these wonder cards up here in Volfyrion's lair. Now, if you want to get the wonder cards, you're going to have to go into the lair and battle with Volfyirion to take away his wonders, obviously removing them from his dragon horde and bringing them back to your city where they're going to help you. Now, we'll look at wonder cards a bit later, but first off, let's have a look at these asset cards and the different kinds of cards you might find in the asset deck. As I mentioned before, the asset cards come in 3 types. You've got your purple cards, which tend to give you knowledge, although this isn't always the case. Green cards, which tend to give you command points. And red cards, which tend to give you battle points. The colors of these cards, in addition to guiding you towards what kind of currency they give you, actually serve a greater purpose for triggering combos, which we'll talk about later. If we look at Telron's analysis here, for example, we can see that it is a command card, that it costs 3 command points to purchase, and that when it's played, it gives us 2 command points and 1 knowledge point. Additionally, it has a second ability down here. Now, these secondary abilities are very important and synergize with other cards in your deck. The way this ability works is that when you play a green card, you will trigger this ability and draw 1 card. Of course, it doesn't count itself. So if you play Telron's analysis, and then you play the wise exchange, you'll be able to draw a card. Card draw in this game is very important, and so this is very powerful. You can see also that the wise exchange has a combo on it. If you were to play wise exchange and then play Telron's analysis, you would gain 2 knowledge points. Furthermore, you could play wise exchange and then play Telron's analysis and use them to trigger off one another, triggering both cards, gaining 2 knowledge points and drawing a card. So purchasing both of these would be great. However, they cost 8 command points together, and we can't afford them with the 4 available to us. We can purchase Barter and Telron's analysis, although this isn't quite as synergistic because Barter doesn't have a triggered secondary ability. Barter has a secondary ability which has this symbol here. When you remove this card from the game, you gain 3 knowledge. So this card allows you to scrap it, you'll remove it from the game and you'll gain a one-time bonus, but the card will be lost to you. Barter's not a particularly great card because it only gets you 1 command point, but you can always get it early on and use it to trigger other effects like the combo on Wise Exchange or Telron's Analysis, and then later when it's not keeping up with the other better cards in your deck, you can scrap it to gain that 1-off 3 knowledge bonus. We also have here the Feasible Solution. Now this card is very strong because it gives us a command point, a battle point, and 3 knowledge. It also has this powerful combo. If you've played a green and purple card, you'll gain 2 command points and 4 knowledge, which is really great. Bear in mind that this purple card here, it cannot include Feasible Solution. Cards cannot trigger off of themselves. There are 2 other kinds of cards you'll find in the asset deck: troops and buildings. These will come out just like these command cards into the asset area here and can be purchased in just the same way. So as you can see here, we've got a guard, and this is an example of a troop card. Note the troop symbol up here. Troops typically have a defense value down here rather than a currency value, but they might also have a secondary ability like this one, which allows you to remove the guard from the game, there's that remove symbol, to gain 3 battle points. This card is a grey neutral card, but troops are not always neutral. Here's an example of a purple troop card called the Quomipulator. They cost 6 to purchase, which is quite expensive, but they have a defense value of 5, which is pretty good. You can also remove them from the game to gain 6 knowledge, which is a lot of knowledge. We've also got these building cards, and you can tell building cards because they have this rook castle symbol up at the top here. This is the black market. It costs 5 to purchase, and it gives you 2 command points when you play it. It also has this secondary ability here, which says when you play a red card, you can remove one of your cards. This means you can take a card that's in your hand, in play on the table, or in your discard pile, and remove it from the game, which is great for getting rid of those less powerful cards if you want to trim your deck. Unlike command cards, which can only be played for their effect on your turn, the cool things about buildings and troops is that they can be stationed in your cities. Buildings stationed in your cities will give you a passive ongoing effect, and it also means that you're more likely to be able to trigger their secondary abilities because they're there on the table all the time. Troops stationed in your cities add their defense value to the defense value of the city. But we'll talk more about stationing cards in cities in just a second. First, our player here is going to purchase some cards from the marketplace. Now, if you remember correctly, we have 4 command points to spend, but we also have 3 knowledge. Now, knowledge can be used for several different things. It has some interesting interactions with wonder cards that we'll look at in just a minute when we get to the wonder cards. It can also be used to manipulate Volfyirion the dragon. But in its interactions here with the asset cards, you can spend 2 knowledge to take an asset card and exchange it. So, if there's one here that you don't want your opponent to have, you can pay 2 knowledge to get rid of it. Or if there are none here that you want to purchase, you can pay 2 knowledge to try and seek some cards that you do want to buy. In this case, let's say, for example, that we don't want our opponent to have the option of taking the hard strike. So we'll pay 2 knowledge to exchange it. What that means is that it goes into a discard pile by the asset deck, and a new asset card is drawn immediately to replace it. Now, we only have 1 knowledge point left, and we can't do anything with that, but we've still got our 4 command points, so let's purchase the Feasible Solution. When you purchase a card from the marketplace, or the asset area here, this will go directly into your discard pile. Any cards purchased from the asset area here will be replaced at the end of the turn. Now we have 3 battle points left. Battle points can be used for 3 things. You can either use them to defeat your opponent's cities, you can use them to defeat Volfyirion, which is a big task, or you can use them to purchase the wonder cards from Volfyrion's lair. Remember that in order to get those wonder cards, we're going to have to go into his lair and fight him in order to recover them. So let's have a look at a wonder card, and I'll explain why these are good. So here we have an example of a wonder card. Now this is called the Living Knife. It costs 3 battle points to purchase, and it's got 2 special symbols down here. Now we'll talk about them a bit in a minute, but just like the other cards you've seen, it's got a benefit down here. In this case, when you play it, you'll get 1 knowledge. Furthermore, it's got a secondary ability. You can remove this card from the game to destroy 1 enemy troop. When you destroy a troop, you take an enemy troop who's on the board and in play and remove him from the game. Over here, we've got these 2 symbols here. This symbol is simply reminding you that when you purchase a wonder from Volfyrion's lair, you can take one of your cards from your hand that's in play on the table or in your discard pile and remove it from the game. That means that by purchasing these wonders, you're also trimming your deck, which is really, really good. Furthermore, you've got a knowledge symbol down here with a value equal to the cost of the card. Once this card is in play, you can spend knowledge to seal and unseal it. But more on that in a minute. So our player here is going to spend 3 battle points to purchase the glowing fungi. When you purchase a wonder, it's added to your discard pile, and you can remove a card from the game. In this case, our player decides to take one of their prospector cards, which is in play, and remove it from the game because they're not very good. Then they've spent all of their currency, and their turn is over. The cards that are in play are sent to the discard pile. Any cards that are purchased are replenished. And then play moves to the other player. Now let's have a look at how the building and troop cards interact with your cities. If you've got building or troop cards in your hand, these can be played to your cities. Each city has 1 building slot and 1 troop slot available. You can see here that they've got symbols on these spaces matching these card types. When a building is played to a city, it's just put down like this, and you immediately gain the benefit here. Furthermore, it adds this secondary ability, and that ability is now in play and effective for the rest of the game until the building is removed. Note that secondary abilities can only be triggered 1 time. Troops can also be played to cities, and when a troop is played to a city, it adds its defense value here to the defense of the city. So now the defense value of this city is 12 instead of 8, making it much more defensible. I can at any time also remove this card from the game to gain this battle point bonus. I can also redeploy troops. If I want to move this troop later to another city, I can pay its cost again in command points to move it across to a different city. Buildings cannot be redeployed and are stuck there. You can always replace a building or a troop with a different building or troop if you want, but the replaced card is removed from the game. This makes buildings very powerful because they give you passive ongoing effects. At the beginning of every turn, you'll gain the benefits of any building present in your city. So a player with the black market will gain 2 command points at the beginning of every turn, so long as the building is present in their city. Another way to gain passive ongoing effects is by playing wonders to the table. If you happen to draw a wonder in your hand, you can play this face up to the table. Wonders don't occupy slots in cities or anything like that, and just remain face up in your play area, adding passive ongoing benefits. Just like the buildings in your city, you will gain 1 command point at the beginning of every turn that the glowing fungi is present on your board. Furthermore, you can always use this secondary ability to remove it from the game in order to gain 3 knowledge. This is where sealing and unsealing comes into effect. If your opponent or you have a lot of these wonders on the table, adding passive benefits, then you can always spend knowledge to seal or unseal these cards. When a card is sealed, it's turned sideways, and it no longer has any benefit. You cannot do anything with this card, you will not gain the resources, you cannot use the secondary ability, until you pay the knowledge to unseal it. You can seal your opponent's wonders in order to prevent them from using them, and you can unseal your own wonders as well using knowledge on your turn. As the game progresses, you'll want to build up a nice selection of wonders on your board, adding passive ongoing benefits and giving you the options to use their secondary abilities if you need to. So over the course of the game, you're going to be building up a nice tableau of buildings in your cities and troops in your cities and wonders on your board, giving you resources every turn. It's going to be great. But what you're really going to be worried about is destroying your opponent's cities. Well, let's talk about that. Remember this city here with 12 defense? Well, in order to destroy a city, you must attack it with battle points. You can spend battle points to destroy a city. Now, if you spend 9 battle points to destroy this city here, it will be destroyed, because 9 battle points is equal to the defense of the city, which is 9. The city will be flipped face down, and your opponent is down one of their 3 lives, essentially. Once all 3 cities are face down, they lose the game. So you want to try and keep your cities protected, which means you're going to be putting troops in them. Now, we've got a defense of 12 here, because we've got 4 defense and 8 defense here. So you need to spend 12 battle points to attack this city. But what's also notable is that if you spend those 12 points, you don't destroy the city. You just kill off the troop. The city remains intact with 8 points. Now, my opponent could attack again. If they had 20 points, they could spend 12 to remove the guard, and then another 8 to destroy the city. But if they don't have enough battle points, the guard has successfully protected the city this round. Go him. Of course, if my opponent happens to have a living knife wonder on the board, they could remove this from the game to destroy the troop in my city, and then they could pay the 8 battle points to destroy the city, and have lost a life. But they've lost their living knife. So destroying cities is one other main use of battle points. Now, there's also this dragon, Volfyirion, to deal with. You see, Volfyrion's got his lair up here on the top of the board, and you can do 2 things with Volfyirion. You can use knowledge points to take temporary control of Volfyirion. Maybe you're using ancient dragon lore to take control of the dragon. Or maybe you're using your wisdom to coerce the dragon. Either way, you send the you can spend 8 knowledge points to move Volfyirion. Now, Volfyirion will move between his lair to a city, or back. Each move between cards costs 8 points. So you can spend 8 points to move Volfyirion to your opponent's city, or you can spend 8 points to move him back to his lair. If you have 16 knowledge points, you can spend 8 to move him back to his lair, and then another 8 to move him to your opponent's city. Now, if during the end phase of your turn, Volfyirion is ever present on one of your cities, the city is destroyed. If at the end of my turn I haven't got the knowledge to move Volfyirion back to his lair, then he's going to destroy this city. These 2 cards on the city are going to be removed from the game, and the city's going to be destroyed. So there's going to be this interesting tug of war back and forth with knowledge trying to manipulate Volfyirion. However, if my opponent has decided to go all in on battle points, doesn't have any knowledge, and doesn't want Volfyirion destroying their cities, you can spend 16 battle points to kill Volfyirion. 16 battle points is a lot, though, and it's quite hard to accumulate. If you kill Volfyirion, first off, you take the Volfyirion model and remove it from the game, because Volfyirion is dead. Then you get to take both wonder cards. These are yours now. Great. Remember, you can also, when you claim those cards, remove cards from the game so you can get rid of some prospectors or whatever. Finally, and this is really cool, you get to claim Volfyrion's lair. When you claim Volfyrion's lair, it comes into your area and becomes a city in your area. So now you'll have 4 cities that must be destroyed in order for you to lose the game. That's really awesome. It's got 9 defense, and every turn it provides you with 4 battle points. That's devastating. So if you manage to claim this, and you've got 16 battle points, your opponent is in serious trouble. You can just take Volfyrion's lair and put it down there next to your other cities. Of course, you can always put troops in it, build buildings in it. You know, that's pretty cool. But now, nobody can get any more wonders. They're all gone. No more wonders coming out because Volfyrion's dead. He's not collecting them anymore. The lair's been inhabited by dirty, filthy humans. So in the end phase, any cards left in your hand are discarded. Any cards in the play area that are not wonders are also discarded. Any cards down here remain in play, but if Volfyirion is on a city in your play area, then that city is destroyed and any cards on the city are removed from the game. Volfyirion returns to his lair. Any cards that have been bought from the assets area here or from the lair are replenished from the appropriate deck. So that's the wonder deck for the lair and the assets deck for the marketplace here. And then play goes over to the other player. Remember that you only draw up to 5 cards at the beginning of your turn. And that's all there is to Volfyirion. It's a fast-paced, furious deck builder with some interesting back and forth going on, particularly the moving of the dragon mechanic, so you want to make sure that you've always got some knowledge in your back pocket, just in case that dragon comes at you. But there's lots of interesting combos as you go for these synergistic secondary abilities on the bottom of cards, and you can just brute force it as well by purchasing those red cards. So some interesting and different strategies become apparent. I'm going to be joined tomorrow by my buddy Barry, who you'll know from some of my other card plays, probably. But if you haven't, check out some of the other card games we've played on the channel. And I hope that you'll come back and join us for our game of Volfyirion. Thanks for watching, everybody.